That's correct, if I do my math correctly.
Gary.
We should use all Zulu time. That'll keep us all confused.
I pointed it at the ceiling. Good.
Now, I'm going to turn this. I'm about to turn that.
There we go.
Yeah, can we get everybody to mute and cut off your video so that we're using up a little less bandwidth there?
All right, looks like everybody's ready, huh? Well, good evening, all. Welcome to the April 2nd meeting of the Clark County Amateur Radio Club. While you're there, turn off your video, that would be helpful. And check your name and call sign on your Zoom screen so we can get a little idea of who's on without running a roll call. There's a couple of you, like, husband, wife. List both your names by call signs so we can figure that out. And then if you don't have a call sign at all, well, make something up. No, put your name. That'll be helpful. That way we can account for everybody. So it's a great day. If you've been outside at all, it's pretty amazing. Beautiful weather starting to emerge in the best part of the country, in my opinion. Even though I'm from Hawaii, I still think the Pacific Northwest is the best. Let's open the call to see if there's any guests, people that are just joining us for the first time. Anybody out there?
I see that Scott Drakers is with us. He's our speaker this evening. Thank you very much for being here, Scott.
Thank you for the invitation.
For the audio.
Welcome, Scott. We'll do the introduction, or Dave will introduce you when the time comes.
Thank you.
It should be about 3 hours from now. Don't let it bother you. Any new hams or club members, new members? Come now.
My name's Ken. I'm new, first time.
Hey, Ken. Where do you hail from?
Hoy.
Just moved up from Santa Rosa, California about a year ago, and still trying to get settled here in the Vancouver
Why
area.
do I not see?
Okay, I got a couple
The
people with an
number.
open mic. KF7NRY. We hear you. Sorry, Ken.
They didn't
Sorry.
give all the other
And
info.
then you mute.
Can you mute him, Dave?
They're not listening.
Okay.
KE7UAK. KF7NRY. Your mic is open. Could you mute, please?
All right, let's see if I can find.
Okay, Ken. Well,
I
somebody
won't
left the
have
door
the-
open and you got in through from California. Did you see that big sign down there near the border, Oregon
other
border that said
numbers.
turn around now?
Well, I snuck up to Fort Town for 9 months, so I think that's how I was able
Oh,
to
yeah.
come back down. So
Oh, we're great to
Okay.
have you. Great to have you. Okay, any others? Any new hams or club members on board? All right, next step, license upgrades. Now's the time to boast a little bit. You got your general or your amateur extra. Now's the time to speak up so we can properly honor you.
Let's see.
Not this time around.
Probably won't be on.
Any
there.
awards or special
Let's see.
certifications anybody got that they'd like to share with the group? Okay, none said. Well, welcome, Ken. You're the guy.
Dang it.
Thank you.
Okay. So,
And we still have someone who's not muted. Please check and make sure you're muted.
have to be quiet. Oh, wait a minute. Mute from there.
Yeah.
Come on. Oh, no, mute down there.
Okay, well, wait a second. The magic button. Thank you. All right, the agenda for this evening. We do not have a heavy agenda this week. This is great. Got a couple really good topics to talk about, some good announcements. And we have a featured presenter, Scott from Camp Murray. So it's a good day, good evening, and I'm glad you're all here. Let's start with where we are relative to one of the goals I set for myself this year, and that has to do with returning to the new normal during this year. As you know, for just a little bit over a year now. We've all been hibernating. We haven't had the pleasure of interacting in person, face to face, for quite a long time. But we've been doing a great job to sort of hold it together with Zoom, and I appreciate all of you that take the effort to do that. Currently here in Clark County, as you can see, we've had sort of a precipitous drop in the number of cases per 100,000 over the last month and a half, and that's great. But like many areas of the country, it's kind of flattened out. It's beginning to plateau a little bit. In some areas of the country, it's working its way up again. So I hope all of you continue with your, if you can, your mask regime, your social distancing, and of course your hand sanitizing, because it has an impact on us, whether we can go back to it in person. So I'd like to make that the first thing that I share with you this evening, talk to you a little bit about the in-person task force that I'm going to form. We talked about it at the board of directors meeting a couple days ago. And as you know, we are the need down at the present Salmon Creek American Legion post may force us out of that facility because they want to expand their bingo opportunities, which is great. It's their building, but it could create a problem for us. And so in anticipation of that, and probably a good time to sniff around and see if there are other locations out there that might meet our needs a little better. So this task force will begin by looking for a new meeting location. There are at least two. I'll show you a picture of one of them that are already in the queue that we're going to look at. Both of them apparently have good bandwidth, so we can do concurrent in-person meetings with the Zoom streaming for those that elect to stay home or live outside a driving range. Both have adequate seating and space to have, upwards of 100 people in there, which is not uncommon for us, and be able to present and learn together. So this is great. The task force, I'm going to try and get it together here in the next 2 weeks. And right now, for purposes of planning, we anticipate we may be able to begin at least early in-person meetings in the late spring or early summer. And all of that, of course, is predicated on those COVID-19 transmission rates that I shared with you a few minutes ago. If they do spike up, you've probably been reading it. You guys all know that I'm a public health guy. There are spikes beginning to emerge in various cities around the country. If that continues, this date will probably need to slide a little bit more towards the fall. But regardless, we are going to put in some good planning there. One, so that we can do this safely and enjoyably for you as members. So some of the staff that are going to get involved in this is myself, Dave Sherbaugh, Marilyn. You don't know this yet. You missed a meeting, so you got assigned. Don, Mark Lacey, and Tom Barton. If any of you others out there are interested in getting involved with this, I'd love to get an email from you. Just make yourself known. So we will initially meet by Zoom, talk about what we want to achieve and when, and then we want to do site visits to the potential sites, and then make a prioritize those sites based on which best meet our needs. The other commitment we made is that every month, both to our board of directors and to you at our general membership meeting, we're going to keep you updated on the status of this. So we'll want to keep you on the edge of your seat so you know that we're planning this. And we also want to receive any concerns you may have. I've been involved in several COVID-19 planning sessions, as you know, in my career. In the last year, I've been doing some work for a school district and for churches. And, there are just some folks that just feel uncomfortable with coming face to face, or they have too many comorbidities, illnesses of a chronic nature that could be of concern to them. So that's why it's important that we be able to do this concurrently with, so we do in person and we also Zoom stream it. And that may be a good thing, as for people that have hard time driving at night, in addition to illness. So that's our plan. If you have any questions about it, let's hold it towards the end when we do the loose ends section, and you can ask your questions there. So this is one of the sites. I'm very aware of it because I am with the Marine Corps League here in Vancouver area, and we meet there. And if you look at the two pictures, one is from the back end of the room. That would be the one on your left. And the other is from the front of the room looking back. That would be the one on the right. As you can see, it's wide open space with folding tables and chairs, very nice elevated presentation area, a very good sound system. So that would be, so some things we wouldn't need to, bring on site for every meeting. It is, and you can see one of our members. In fact, I don't know if you can see my arrow, but on the left-hand picture, you can see that one of our former commandants of our unit, the Marine Corps League, is disabled, and he uses a wheelchair and successfully navigates in through the doors and bathrooms and other things. But we're also going to make sure that people who have difficulty with vision and hearing also can be accommodated successfully. So this is the kind of thing we're looking for. Whether this is the place, I don't know, but we are looking for a new location. A couple other things worth mentioning to you this evening. We did approve a revision to the emergency response coordinator policy on Wednesday. And as you know, if you've read this policy, you can find it on the webpage already. Gary has done a great job of getting that up there. And it will coordinate the efforts within the club, like our IWARN group, and also with our external groups like Aries, so that we operate as a cohesive system of amateur radio support to emergency management. One of the things that I will be tasked with in that policy is appointing a coordinator. And my intent there is to put out an appeal for potential candidates to review them with the board of directors staff, and then appoint them prior to wildfire season when we tend to see more activity. But so this gets us into the game. Right hand knows what the left hand is doing, both internally and externally. Second, one of the things that went by the wayside during this COVID incarceration, if you want to call it that, is our digital group. And so we were going to be restarting the digital group. We have the former leader of that willing to take it on as in the interim, but we would be looking for a person to permanently coordinate that group and do meetings. And again, it's going to be dependent on a new meeting location, because even where the digital group met, which is the Public Works building for Clark County, is no longer available to us. So we will be, and hopefully we can do it in the same place or one of the locations that are well known to us, so it's convenient to everybody. And then lastly, my announcements, Clark County Aries Amateur Radio Emergency Service. I'm helping to facilitate their strategic planning process. And you may know that on Saturday morning, we're going to have a focus group commissioned. These are selected people that have been invited. And we're going to be looking at one of three possible organization types. And I'll share those with you just for a moment. One would be that they remain sort of a loosely knit group of radio amateurs under the guise of ARRL going forward. Another, on the other extreme, would be that the Aries group here incorporate themselves, seek not-for-profit status, and become an organization and an entity into itself. And then the third option, which is actually in the middle of that continuum, would be that it remain a largely a non-incorporated group, but it would affiliate itself in some formal way with the club, with us, under an agreement. This is necessary for a number of reasons, including compliance with Washington State not-for-profit rules and regulations. We identified a couple areas there that may make it difficult for Aries, and we don't want to make it difficult for Aries. But when you look at this plus the emergency response coordinator, you can see we want to bundle ourselves up as a sort of a continuum of services, ranging from emergency response, which would be Aries, to radio amateurs monitoring their local communities, which would look more like IWARN, all the way up to being able to bring into play the full resources of the club. And as you know, we're well over 300 people, and we could bring to bear a substantial communications infrastructure on relatively short order during a major emergency like a big earthquake. Okay, moving forward, we still have an open appeal for an assistant to help Don to aid in some of our document preparation, review, and formatting. I put this out last month. Hopefully, one of you have been sort of ruminating on this idea and be willing to step forward. We could use your help. So if you're interested, send me an email at pres, P-R-E-S, at w7aia.org. You can find that address link on our webpage. Super, super easy, but we do need your help. Step aboard. So I'm going to pass it over to Dave Sherba now. And Dave, you want to pick up the mentor project?
Sure, I'm actually speaking on behalf of Tom Barton here. It was discussed in the board meetings. We've recognized for a long time that a lot of people, a lot of amateurs get licensed, but they never actually activate their license. They don't get on the air. They don't get that, handheld working. And so what we're looking at doing for the club is putting together some one-on-one mentors paired up with new amateurs. We're looking for each mentor will work with one new ham to help them get on the air. Primarily, the mentors will be expected to help the new hams learn how to operate on the repeaters and simplex for basic communications, help them make those first few QSOs, and make sure they can get on the radio and stuff going. So this is a new effort for the club, and we're looking forward to trying to get a better recidivism with the new hams and actually get them active. Next slide, please. We're also looking at, the project is primarily for the technicians. Mentors will have access to other members for assist in getting radios programmed. A lot of us are geared up to program radios for people, which is a key element for getting them on the air and that. So if you're interested in being one of these mentors for the new technicians, contact Tom Barton, and he'll get you on a list, and when we get the new hands lined up, we'll pair you up with new people. Next slide, please. In addition, it's become very apparent in the last 6 or 7 months that we need mentors for new generals as well. We had a couple people on before the meeting, and they were talking about getting their antennas working. We're looking for mentors to work with some of those generals, new generals. Discuss simple antennas, no exotic antennas, just basic dipoles or verticals or G5 RVs. Just get the hams on the air, first of all. We've had a lot of hams that had trouble getting their computers configured with their radios so they could control them and or do the FT8. So we're looking for specific mentors that are familiar with getting the ICOM 7X series and the ASU FTX series working in the Kenwoods. So if you're very knowledgeable in connecting those computers to those HF radios, please, again, get a hold of Tom Barton and let him know. And again, if you have new hams that need more exotic antennas put up than a simple dipole, we do have a tower crew that helps put up towers and antennas as needed. So that's it on the new mentor project. Please, if you're interested in being a mentor, give Tom Barton a call. Next slide. So now, changing hats. Okay. Normally, we've already started field day meetings by now, but with the uncertainty associated with the social distancing and the restrictions, we really held off doing that a little bit. So we're going to hold a Zoom meeting, probably the third weekend in April, to discuss the plans for field day. So the way things are looking, and we haven't really talked it over a whole lot, but last year we did a very low-key field day out to Tim Coleman's home. This year it looks like we might be able to expand that operation a little bit, whether it's at Tim's house or another venue. So we'll be able to have a little bigger operation, maybe a 3 alpha setup like we normally do. We may even be able to have a GOTA station, but one of the things we're going to need to do is we're going to need to schedule people in and out of that so we stay within the guidelines. You know, the way things are looking, it doesn't look like we're going to have any big dinners or breakfasts. So some of the social stuff is going to be pretty limited. But it looks like if people are willing to follow the guidelines, that we may be able to expand things a little bit and have some visitors this year if they're willing to follow the guidelines and willing to be scheduled to visit the field day site. Next slide. So one of the things we're going to really try to do to, I've talked about this for the last 3 or 4 years and we just haven't pulled it off. But one of the things we're going to try to do is do an N1MM training class on Zoom, so we can get everybody up to speed on Zoom a little bit. And because we may change our mix of radios, we normally use FT450s primarily for field day and one ICOM 7000. This year we may have a couple extra ICOMs in the mix, so we may do some specific operator training on the ICOMs. And, you know, I hate to be the bad guy, but, you know, people who want to operate in our field day will be expected to have the vaccine and to follow the state guidelines. That's just what we have to do to feel comfortable about making sure everybody stays safe. And with that, I think we're on to the next slide.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay.
Wayne put this up last month about CPAC. I don't want to go back over it again unless Wayne wants to add anything. But there's going to be a sort of a CPAC light this year. I can tell you that that group has been working hard to prepare for CPAC in the absence of our ability to have the convention face-to-face this year. So good stuff is coming. Stay in focus. And next month, we'll continue to keep you in the loop on that. Wayne, do you want to add anything?
No, I think that's pretty well covers it. And there'll be more in next month's rocking chair as well.
Thank you, Wayne. I like your new picture, by the way.
Okay.
So I'm going to drop a presentation here, my share in a moment in favor of Dave, who's going to introduce our speaker. And if he's got some slides, he'd be welcome to bring it up.
So I'd like to introduce Scott Draker. He's with the Washington Emergency Management Division. He's graciously agreed to talk with us this evening. He's been in the job a couple of years. I was very impressed that he's got a history in education. And given that history in education, I think he is finding that the job he's in now is probably requiring a lot of those tools again. So Scott, I hope you appreciated that. Especially having worked with people in that age group, I know exactly how tough that was. So please go ahead and share your screen and let's welcome here to the Clark County Amateur Radio Club.
Well, thank you for having me. This is great. I'm going to. I've been doing an awful lot of Zoom meetings. Like I live on Zoom meetings now as a teacher in Shelton in Mason County, and it's definitely kept me busy. Keeping track of oh, good grief, 90 kids in for history, and then I taught a math class of about 20 kids, and it's been a lot. One thing clearly has happened is that how we do business has most definitely changed. I don't know that education is ever going to completely go back to the way it was. And we all saw this with 9/11. It's almost like there are people who were born before 9/11 and those after 9/11 don't experience air travel the same way. We're going to be in that same kind of a boat. One of the things that I was working on before everything went sideways with COVID was we were working on a catastrophic communications exercise, would be equivalent to having an exercise for
He's right.
it would be the radio equivalent of a Cascadia Rising exercise. And it's a full scale exercise. And what the plan is that we would be starting this at home because we're not going to be conveniently located in our radio room at the EOC when the earthquake hits. So it's like, let's deal with the way things are really going to be. And we're headed towards starting at home and being able to work from home and then moving to the EOCs. And if COVID had held off another couple of years, we would have been a lot better prepared for it. But it's also given us a lot. We've learned a lot from it along the way. As I'm sure we're well aware, Camp Murray has been activated now for, good grief, since January. of 2020. And we are just now going to be able to go back to having exercises like we've had in the past. What exactly they're going to look like is going to vary from location to location. So this is a lot of this is a stay tuned kind of a thing.
Bear with me.
Not a problem.
I'm getting them to mute. Okay. We're good.
Oh, teaching in school, I get this a lot, so we're good. Okay. One of the things I was asked to talk about was some of the changes that are taking place with Camp Murray, and they are considerable. So this is going to be, I think this is going to be the first group we're going to actually share some of this information with. Some of it is still bearing out final approval, but the direction is most definitely there. And I'll just go through it. I've got about 18 slides, and then I'll be able to take questions. Okay. Let me see if I can make this work. Here we go. What we created for a long, long time, what we've had is they call it the Racy's room at Camp Murray. And what we saw, and I'll get more into it in a little bit, there was a disconnect that was created that was built into the system at Camp Murray. And it was identified by Chris Utzinger. And when I came on board, I was tasked to deal with the disconnect between the radio room and the actual operations within a state EOC. And we started completely from scratch, and we wanted to put this thing together in a way that it was going to be that the intrinsic value of radio communications, and more important, the radio communicators, the ham radio operators, are more fully appreciated, utilized, and integrated into the emergency management response to any given event. Most of what we've been training for has been a catastrophic event, but the truth is that we're more likely to have a bunch of other littler events long before that happens. And we need to integrate our capabilities, our amateur radio capabilities, directly into the emergency management agencies. So they've created what's called, and I'll show you here in a minute where it fits. Those of you that have taken 100, 200, 700, 800, the FEMA courses, you are very familiar with some of this already. And in this model, communications comes under the logistics unit, and I'll share with that in a minute. But what we've done is we've moved the entire operation of radio communications into a logistics communications unit for Camp Murray, which encompasses all radio communications. And the mission of course, of the logistics communications unit is now to provide supplemental data that would be, whether it be WinLink, there's a number of modes, those of you that have been doing this a long time know, and tactical communications by voice in the event that primary phone and internet services are either overtaxed or inoperable. So now all of a sudden, instead of the old when all else fails, now we'll get a hold of the radio operators. It's like, no, when things start to get, when we start to lose a little, we're losing some of our capabilities, we need additional resources. All of a sudden, the radio teams are now going to be kicked into play. Let's see. What we've developed is a statewide PACE plan, and PACE it stands for Primary, Alternate, Contingency, and Emergency Communications. And where if you think of it as like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, the PACE plan is designed to address interruptions and damage to either voice or digital communications, anything that would hamper the ability of the EOC to mitigate or respond to any given disaster of any size. And that can be something as simple as we've lost our internet or the phones are down. If the phones are down for a period of time, that impairs their ability to actually function as a unit. So now what we're doing is we're looking at how can amateur radio and their capabilities support and supplement the mission of the EOC when any number of communications issues could possibly crop up. As I pointed out, PACE, primary, alternate, contingency, and emergency communications. Our primary is commercial phone and internet. Alternate would be systems that these are the systems we would use when the primary systems are inoperable or not available within the agency. So let's say there was we lost internet. Okay, maybe then what we need to do is for those of us who are working with HamWAN, that may become our alternate. We're able to send out email messages and work through WinLink capabilities through this means, and thus keep them until such time as the local problem is solved and they're able to continue operations. If there's a regional emergency and communications are wiped out in a certain sector, let's say an earthquake in a particular area, or is what we had most recently with fires coming in and taking out cell towers and melting fiber optic lines, setting up radio stations that are capable of handling digital and voice traffic, like remote WinLink stations and voice communications. That's contingency communications. And then emergency communications are the systems that we had let's say we have a massive 9.0 earthquake. This is an all hands on deck. And these are things that we will practice for and put into place when this happens. It's a preset plan, but all along the way, I guess if I could go back to what I was talking about earlier, up until Cascadia Rising 2016, it was the only thought that people gave to the capabilities of amateur radio operators was in an emergency situation when all else fails, not fully understanding that we have the ability to provide alternate contingency communications in the event that for regional sized events, or maybe that the communications are down here and they're going to be down for a while, we can keep you up and operational. So it's a whole different way of thinking for emergency management agencies. But at the same time, as they are changing their thought processes as to how to best utilize the capabilities and talents of amateur radio operators as communications specialists. There's also a change that's taking place in how we integrate into the emergency management agency itself. This is just good to know, because there's three things that are happening all at the same time. There's a difference between what's called a push and a pull response. In emergency management, we use the NIMS or the ICS system, the incident control. The incident management system, in which the local agency is the one who is in charge of the response, and you work it at the closest level to the incident itself as you possibly can. And then what you do, once you get a handle on what it is that you've got, you grow the response to meet the need. And so we call that a pull response. You pull in outside resources, you grow the capabilities to meet the need. And then as the needs are being met, as you no longer need things, then you start to demobilize and the whole response begins to shrink back down again. Alternate and contingency operations fall under what would be a pull response. Yes, where resources are being pulled in, utilized, and they grow to meet the specific needs. In a major catastrophic event, like a Cascadia type event, we have what's called a push response. And what that means is that, okay, there's been this huge disaster, start loading up. They're going to need a whole bunch of equipment that needs to be sent out in response to this disaster. They start rolling ships, they start rolling out all kinds of aircraft, and they start loading them up because they know they're going to need food, they know they're going to need these resources, and they start sending all that stuff out knowing that where they're going to land is to be determined, but they're going to need the stuff, and they start sending them out to pre-position positions in advance of getting them out exactly where they need to. So most emergency communications will happen in a push response, and we will be practicing those things when we start practicing and exercising for our cascading events. But we also need to be able to practice for pull events, like this operating system is down, or this area does not have this type of communication. So this is, like I say, this is a whole new way for everybody to be thinking, understanding that all of this capability needs to be tied in and corralled into one single operational plan that comes under Camp Murray, comes under Clark County, that comes under Lewis County, that comes under wherever it is. And each agency is working with these resources and has this incredible team of people that are with these capabilities to make all of this work. I was sitting down last week in a meeting where I'm describing what new capabilities we've put together for Camp Murray, and there's a real good possibility that if we really do have that 9.0 earthquake, is Camp Murray really going to continue to function? And I said, well, radio will. That's not going to be a problem. Where you guys set your laptops up to do whatever it is that you're going to do, that may be a different matter. But radio communications, no matter what happens, is going to continue here in the Pacific Northwest. And they said, well, that tower is going to come down. And I said, well, all I need is 130 foot of long wire, a couple of decent trees that are still standing, or, even if they're leaning in a particular direction, get a rope, throw a line over the top of a tree, make an inverted L. We're back online in 45 minutes. And the whole idea that there are people out there, like what you were talking about, Field Day, that can look at that and say, yeah, I can get us back and operational. We will have these capabilities. This was mind-blowing to them, because a lot of folks, especially people that are involved in emergency management, know that if the radio goes bluey, they need to call in some special tech to come in and fix the stuff and make it work. Whereas amateur radio operators are technicians. We build antennas. We know how to fix and locate problems in coax. We know how to swap out parts in a radio, or just say, I got another one, I got a spare, here, plug this in. This is a capability that is invaluable in ways in an emergency that far transcends anything this goes beyond equipment. Having that level of expertise and specialty is unbelievably valuable in this kind of a setting. And those of you that participate in things like Field Day have the ability to set up an equivalent to a remote radio operations in a location, say some field unit, a medical hospital. That was another one that came up when we had that field hospital that they were setting up in Seattle for COVID response. What were they going to do? One of the questions was, what if we lose internet? What if we lose power? And they're now starting to see that sometimes satellite's not the answer. It's, in fact, the bigger problem isn't equipment. The bigger problem is going to be personnel, people with the knowledge, people with the skills, people with the ability. So now, not only are we looking from Camp Murray's point of view, not only are we looking at the importance of, yes, we need the equipment, yes, we need to have these things up and operational, but yes, we need to train people. We need to be able to work together to support each other and to make communications happen, because nothing flows without communications. You can't, you may have the best trucking system in the world, best transportation in the world, but when a disaster hits, if you don't have communications, you don't know where to send stuff. You need communications. So that's why the emphasis has been so heavy this year, on this last year and a half on this. And well, let me just go on with the slideshow. There's more coming. I got so much I could talk about. Now, I've been using some terms, NIMS and ICS. And what is that? NIMS, NIMS, is the National Institute Management System, and ICS is the Incident Command System. This is the framework which every emergency management agency works within. It is required under federal law. This is the same system that police use, that fire uses. I'm a school teacher and a school administrator. This is the same system that they use when there's a fire or there's an incident at a school. Everything comes under the incident management system. And the reason, and this all comes back originally from fire agencies. That you think of one company that you have a fire station, they go to a fire, they get there, whoever's the captain of that truck is in charge. They call in more units to come in and respond to the fire because it's bigger than one truck can handle. And if it's bigger than that one city can handle, they've got mutual agreements with other agencies, and they call on those mutual agreements and they grow the fire to meet a particular need. And then, of course, when they start the fire comes under control, those units aren't needed as much. The units that came from outside are demobilized, and eventually they bring the thing back down. This was the best system. This was the system that was put into place after Katrina. And the idea was that we needed to have a system and for managing disasters, but also managing communications that grows to meet the need, meets the need, and then has a way of demobilizing safely such that the need is constantly being met. But we have a way to go back to whatever the new normal becomes. Okay. This is what, for those of you who had that training, know that this is what the incident command system looks like. The person who is making the final decision is the incident commander. There's two groups of people that work with him. You have the general staff, and then the command, you're looking at operations, planning, logistics, and finance. The one I want you to look at is logistics. And this is one of the places where we found a real bottleneck when we were dealing with Cascadia Rising 2016. If you look down there, you'll see that there's supposed to be a communications unit. There's two sections in a major operation under logistics. You have the service branch, which is taking care of all of the needs within the ICS system that you see, the incident command system, the actual structure. And then you have the support branch, which is moving material, whether it be, in this case, for the COVID response, this is going to be the PPE that's moving out, or the vaccines, or and having the military that are distributing things. All of that would come under one of the support branch that are taking care of all that stuff. But the ones who are making all of this work for the system itself, the food unit, which is taking care of all the food for all the people within that command structure, the medical unit, which is taking care of not the medical needs of people outside of the unit, like the people that are getting hurt, that are hurt from the earthquake. No, this is the medical unit is for taking care of the people within the incident command structure. And the communications unit is the one who's supposed to handle radio communications, all communications for the entire incident command structure. It all comes under logistics. Here's where the problem we came into. The Ares structure is an entirely different structure. It starts off at the national level with the ARRL's service organization. You have section managers, section emergency coordinators, assistant section emergency coordinators. Then below them at the district level, you've got district emergency coordinators, assistant district emergency coordinators. Then you go down to the county level, you've got ECs. And this is off a little bit because they have AECs down like at the city and town level, but that's not the case at all. You can have a county emergency coordinator, and cities can have their own emergency coordinators, and under them are assistant emergency coordinators. Now, when you look at this is the way when the incident fires off, everybody's looking to the communications unit, and that's what they're expecting, and that's what the incident management structure fully understands. But what did we have at Cascadia Rising? We had this. And what we had literally was a disconnect. At some point in time, we have to figure out how to plug this into this. How do we make this and all of the communications capabilities that is inherent in this incredible group of people, how do we make that fit into here? How do we make it work with a communications unit so that all of the communications are coordinated back into the incident, and that the message traffic that needs to go from the planning section or the finance section, or more importantly, the operations section, which is the people that are doing the jobs, how does all of that go through here? And that's where the biggest breakdown was. We really didn't have, these two systems were totally separate. What we have here is the actual internal workings of the incident command structure as it exists within any of our EOCs. And what this is an outside agency that is providing a public service. So what Camp Murray decided was, we need to combine this and this into a single unit, because if the way that we're communicating here doesn't mesh with what we need in here, we're going to have communications breakdowns. We're going to have miscommunications. We're going to have lost communications, and all of that. What that means is that the response doesn't happen the way that it should. People are going to suffer more than they need to, and property is going to be lost. So that was one of the big things I was tasked to work on. We learned that amateur radio operators were desperately underused during Cascadia Rising 2016. That message traffic from the amateur radio operations was lost as it came into from AHJ. An AHJ is an agency having jurisdiction. When the message traffic was coming in from outside clubs, the AHJs did not have, the agency did not have the wherewithal as to how to handle message traffic that was not coming in as part of their system. There was not internal channels set up to manage this traffic. And the most valuable asset, the amateur radio operators, were functioning under a separate organizational structure and were separate from the incident itself. What needed to happen was a way to integrate the two together. So here's another thing, though. The fact is we really truly are far more likely to encounter multiple large regional disasters long before we will actually have a Cascadia subduction zone event. Predicting the Cascadia subduction zone, when is it going to happen? Well, we know from the studies that Oregon, down towards the south is where it seems to break the most. And that would be down towards California or Oregon. Probably once every 750 years, the entire thing rips open along the entire Cascadia fault line. But the lower half, it's probably every 200 to 250 years. And we're right around 300 years. So when is it going to happen? We have no idea. But in between that, we've had multiple earthquakes in the Seattle area. We've got earthquakes that hit down where you are. We have wildfires. We have all kinds of things that are going to happen. And if all we're training for is a Cascadia event, we're losing the opportunity to use the incredible resource that is amateur radio, that amateur radios can bring to the fight. If all we're focusing in on was a one single event, the Cascadia subduction zone event, we need to train people in a manner that allows them to be, we call in the incident management system, they're called RADOs, radio operators. And we need to come up with a way of not only managing the training of radios so that we can function as a cohesive statewide unit that the message traffic that comes in that flows in a way that is operable. Here's, for example, you send something from Clark County, you send it to Camp Murray. If we're all working off the same forms, we're all thinking the same thoughts, if we're all working towards the same goals, and we're working together as a single team, my job at Camp Murray is not to put people out in the field. It's to receive the things that are coming from you and to get it to the people who are going to make a difference and get you the supplies that you need. That's my job. You have an entirely different job because you support the EOC right there in Clark County and all these in the different EOCs in Clark County, but you also are out in the field. You're the ones that are going to be in the shelters. You're going to be the ones that are doing rapid damage assessments as you drive around and report what roads are out. You have two functions that you're doing, and all that information gets funneled to your EOC, and then it goes from your EOC to the state. The resources that you need, the things you don't have, will go to the state EOC. Incident snapshots, the iSnap reports. What does it look like there? What's going on there? All of that information gets funneled up eventually to the state EOC so that we can provide you more help and more resources. That's the goal. But we have to all be playing off the same piece of sheet music. And that's been the focus for this, what we've been working on now for the last year and a half. So we need to come up with some standardized training that allows for the integration of volunteers to serve as logistics communication unit members for their own agencies statewide, so that we are functioning, we are serving a role within the agency itself, not as just as an outside agency. There's things that only Aries can do, but there's a function within the state emergency operations center, and there's a function within each emergency operations center in each jurisdiction where when that gets fired up, there's a logistics unit, and there needs to be communications within that logistics unit for that agency. And that's the place that we're working on bridging right now. The other thing is that once we're all working off the same piece of sheet music and we've integrated well this way, we are going to be in a position to support Idaho, Alaska, Oregon, and California wants to play with us too, because they see the direction we're going. And in fact, in the last several wildfires, the one who has been supporting California with radio communications capability has been Washington. It's been Washington Amateurs and Washington EMD. We have the largest, Washington State has the largest number of shares RMS stations, WinLink RMS stations in the nation. We have 4 times the capability of California. We have double the capability of larger states back east that suffer hurricanes on a regular basis. We have spent a great deal of time and effort coordinating this and making this happen. This is so that what we've done, and by using shares frequencies, which are federal frequencies that allow us to use amateur radio equipment, but on federal frequencies, this allows us to double the amount of radio capability that we have going into any EOC or between EOCs. And it allows, it's like taking a freeway and doubling up the number of lanes and increasing the amount and the flow of information along this information highway. And as well as giving you at the local level the ability to utilize the amateur radio material, the amateur radio frequencies you have for support of things that are going on in the community, be that Red Cross shelters or fire stations or whatever it is that you need to do, and then having the EOCs not tie up your traffic by being able to communicate on a completely different system, but having it all back in WinLink, which is able, the whole system can communicate to each other. It's like the perfect mesh. We have PAMWAN, we have WinLink HF, we have packet, we have FM bearer, we have all kinds of capabilities. And with amateur radio operators, we have the personnel who all we need to do is point at the stuff and say, go. And that you guys are absolutely the missing piece to making all of this work. Okay. So lessons learned from Cascadia Rising, amateur radio operators and operations needs to be embedded into each agency having jurisdiction. And that training needs to revolve around smooth operations between the professional EMD staff and volunteer staff. In a lot of cases, when we've had EOC to EOC exercises, it has felt like the amateur radio community has been operating in a vacuum, that they're out creating exercises to try to be ready for things. And the agency has not really, it's felt like they've been different, set apart, not like we're not working together. And the truth is, we haven't really. Hello? Am I going? Go ahead.
Keep
Go ahead,
going,
Scott.
fine. That was just a freak noise.
Oh, okay. So the work of, I guess I'm going to come back and say is what we're looking at is two things. We've got to be embedded and we got to train together. So at Camp Murray, what they did is they formed the communications unit. There's the ComL is a communications unit lead. And the goal is that we're going to have professional staff and that are going to be serving in the communications unit. These will be people who have other jobs within the state EOC who are also going to be trained that if something goes bluey and we need radio operations, we're not going to do it. It's not going to happen during a day that we're having an EOC to EOC exercise. They're going to need to be able to fire the radios up and be able to use those things until the amateurs can come in, the volunteers can come in and take over. Truthfully, the volunteers will be able to do a better job. And we need the professional staff in some other location. But if communications are down, they're going to have to take some of those assets and move them into the radio room to maintain radio operations until we can get the volunteers there. This is going to require, like I say, a little more training as to how to do this, because there has to be a handoff. There has to be a handoff between the professionals who are the professional staff that's there and the volunteers who are going to come in and take over and maintain this thing and actually grow it. Everybody there knows that it's going to be the ones who are by far the more capable are the volunteers who are going to be called in. It's almost like a reserve unit for the EOC itself. This is volunteer staff that's going to come in that are more capable and are going to be able to handle this. This is perfect for them because now all of a sudden they've got incredible resources, incredible people are going to come in and take things and do this and be embedded and integrated with the system as a whole. Okay. At Camp Murray, we have the logistics communications radio room. We have 12 share stations that runs 8 of them run right up the I-5 corridor. We have one in Battleground. We actually maintain the one that's in Portland, Oregon as well. So we've got you guys bracketed on either side. We have stations that go all the way up into Seattle. We got one that's going to be coming online with, it's going to be a combination Mars station and share station on Whidbey Island. We have the 60-meter communications unit. And then we're building out amateur radio FM networks as well. Camp Murray's putting in a 220 repeater at Camp Murray. We're working on a 220 net. And the reason we selected 220 is because it's got really great legs. It works like 2 meters on steroids. And you guys need to have all of the 220 and 440 repeaters you can possibly get your hands on when a disaster breaks. So the thought process was we need to not be impinging on what little communications capabilities you have. We need to do something separate and different and still, here's another advantage. I mean, a lot of the people out there that you're going to have problems with when a disaster hits. You can have everybody with a Baofeng that's going to want to try to find out what they can find out, and it's going to be a little crowded on 2 meters and 440. Most Baofengs don't have 220 capability, and we're working right now on making sure that we have 220 capability and 6 meter capability that goes down into Clark County and all the way up the coast, and then 6 meter east back into the eastern part of the state. We're working while we're putting together all of the logistical stuff of having radio communications gear. We're also working on training, and one of the issues, and this came out in an exercise that was attempted in with regards to a potential with a lahar on Mount Rainier. There are schools that are right in the pathway of the lahar. And what they wanted to do is to use amateur radio operators to do communications as part of the lahar practice for kids evacuating. But the amateur radio operators were not checked out. They didn't have what do you call the clearance to be around children and adults who are, shall we say, vulnerable adults. What came out of that was we need to come up with a state certification where those people who are going through a state certification for radio operator is automatically has had the checks, and so that they can serve in those positions. So that they can go into the schools. It's like they can say, well, are you okay to be? Yep, here's my badge. I'm state certified. I've been checked out. I can be here. Okay, good, go. And that's what we need to have happen, that people recognize that the radio operators that are doing this job have been checked out. Not only are they excellent radio operators, but they're excellent human beings and people you can trust. And they've been checked out by the state. We need to have training for professional staff in the EOCs. And what we've done is we've actually created, they haven't been released yet, but in fact, we just hired somebody that's supposed to do this, but books have already now been written where we have position task books that are tied into Oxcom. And there are 2 levels. What we've done is we've taken Oxcom and we've broken it down so that into manageable chunks for the professional staff and for volunteers to be able to do. And what we're going to do is we're going to provide training and additional support for people to be able to go out and to learn the things that they need to in order to be radio operators functioning in a logistics communications unit. And then we're also working on, and this is the next one I'm working on, is radio station managers. I am the logistics communications unit lead at Camp Murray. But when we go into 24-hour a day, 7-day-a-week operations, I can't be there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. After about 8 to 10 hours, I'm going to need a break, or I'm going to start making some big mistakes. We need to have multiple people who are capable of doing this particular job, and to look and to manage what we're talking about. In the local level, we need the same thing too. You need to have multiple people who can walk into that radio station and manage the radio station. And they need to be able to integrate with the local logistics chief and the in as part of the logistics communications unit, and have all of that flow together. Be able to manage the radio station, and possibly, especially in smaller counties and smaller cities, the radio station manager may, for all practical purposes, be functioning like a COML, a communications unit lead. So we're looking at how to pull together that kind of training. So one of the things that we're working on, and I'm working on this with the ESF, our new ESF2, is to come up with training, and with the state SWIC, who is in charge of trainings for radio operators across the state, is to bring more training opportunities to our amateur radio community, and that the trainings that we do have, to have them geared for the amateur radio community who want to help and want to serve and want to be to give their talents, their gifts, and their abilities to their community when the community needs them. And so we're taking some of the things that were more fire oriented, and we're making it communications oriented, and we're looking at redesigning some of the ICS 300, the ICS 400 classes, and doing that. And one of the things I found out, I'm actually qualified. I've got to take one class, but we will be able to bring COML classes and COML trainings to the state of Washington and have them right here locally, not have to wait for months and years for those things to happen. I'm working right now on putting together a train the trainer class for COML and for OXCOM, so that we will have people here trained in Washington state that will be capable of providing this additional training to our radio teams, so that they will have the absolute best training available to serve within their agencies. The number one thing that gets passed between your EOC and the state EOC, there's three things, really. We don't handle a lot of tactical traffic, very little. What happens is, if somebody needs a resource, they go to the state to go get it. My job is really, I'm more of a radio receiving station than I am anything else, to be perfectly honest. What we've done is we're working on standardizing the ICS 213 RRs, which are the requests for resources, the general messages, which are going to go on the ICS 213 general message, and the ISNAP reports, which tell us what is the situation in your county. Do you have power? Do you have sewer? Do you have police? Do you have fire? Is the hospital still functional? It's a snapshot of the community, and how are you doing, and how sufficient are you? How self-sufficient are you, and what resources do you need? All of these are going to go on. These are in standardized forms, and they are in WinLink as well. One of the things we're working on right now at the state level is to integrate WinLink with the operating system that every emergency management agency within the state of Washington is using, which is called WebEOC. So when there's an incident, WebEOC kicks in, and everybody's working in WebEOC. Well, what happens if you need to send a request for resources to the state of Washington? They're fine, but you're having the local agency's having a problem, or maybe it's coming, it's going from, well, let's just leave it there. You have an EOC, a local EOC that needs to get this request over to the state for the county. When it comes over, it's going to be sent by WinLink. When we pick it up on WinLink, we pull it up on our computers at WinLink. What we're working on right now, we're really close to having this. We'll be the first one in the country to have it, is to click on the message as it comes in, the ICS 213, click on it, drag it, and then drop it. Click, drag, and drop directly into WebEOC, so that message traffic goes immediately into the system. So all of these new things are going to require additional training, so that people understand how these systems all work. And the people that we're wanting to work with is the amateur radio community, because they're the ones who have the skills and the ability and the understanding how to do all this stuff. Let's see. Some of the training opportunities that we're working on right now. Oregon ACES class is really, really good. It's kind of like OXCOM light, but for people that are brand new to working in emergency management or working with an emergency management agency, this is really, truly a great weekend of outstanding training that will really get people headed in the right direction. Our goal is to ultimately provide OXCOM to all the different agencies across the state, and to have the trainers available so that we have this training, so that we can fully integrate everybody into their own logistics communications unit. So the way it would work is, you have an ARES group. If there's an emergency, what happens is the ARES group would now become the logistics communications unit. We would answer to the incident commander. We would be working under the logistics chief, and we would function. It would be like we leave all the club stuff outside, but we're now a functional part of the emergency management response as their communications unit. The 60-meter unit and the EOC exercises, we're developing the 60-meter net exercises are going to expand. The EOC to EOC exercises are expanding. We're going to be doing more and more. We have you probably have heard that Cascadia Rising 22 is not going to have a radio component. They're going to assume that communications are actually viable and functioning, and they're going to start as if they were on day 5 after the earthquake hit. However, Camp Murray says, no, we also have to have a communications exercise that starts at day 0. And we need the radio teams to have the opportunity to practice emergency communications and things like, this antenna is down. We need to set up this antenna. This building is down. We need to set up a remote communication center for this. And how we're going to do that. It's going to be a 2-day live exercise that is going to be radio only, radio communications only. I've heard from Oregon and I've heard from Idaho that when we do this, they want to participate with us. So this is going to be a multi-state event that will be that's being sponsored by Camp Murray, that is going to be focused on the emergency communications units across the state. I believe that's all of my slides. There's a lot of things going on. We're working really hard. The value of the emergency that you bring to emergency communications and to your local areas cannot be overestimated. And I think it's vitally important that people understand that what you are bringing and the work that you do is so valuable that I guess what I would say is that Camp Murray's come to the places like, we need to not only thank these guys for what they do, we need to jump in and support it and provide them with resources to make this far better, to give you the tools to integrate and to make this work as one combined unit statewide. And with that, I think I've been talking long enough. So if you have questions for me, fire away.
Go ahead and unmute if you have a question for Scott.
Yeah, this is Gary, K7GJT down here in Clark County.
Hey, Gary.
How are you doing?
Good, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great. And I got to tell you, it's really refreshing to hear the word Oxcoms coming out of the mouth of somebody from Camp Murray. The concept was taught originally in this area in 2012 down in Portland. And I went to that class and I took the message to Jim Pace and Monty Simpson and said, this is the way FEMA expects us to play. We need to address this.
Right.
And of course, it didn't go anywhere because everybody was happy with what they had and believed that they could take care of their own county, and that's all they had to worry about. But it's a different world we're in now. And
I agree.
it's really refreshing to hear the word Oxcom coming out of your mouth.
I think, and especially for where you are right now, because you would be the most logical group of people to support Portland of anywhere. You've got the resources and you've got the trained personnel. So and radio doesn't stop at the border. It's not going to stop right at the river. So the idea that one of the things we're looking at is the importance of being able to work across the border and to be able to support them. I mean, how hard would it be for you guys if once we've integrated in this system and we put everything together and we're all playing, like I say, off the same piece of sheet music, how easy would it be for them to say, hey, look, we're going to shut our radio room down. Would you guys manage the radio room and be net control and handle these things for us and send these messages through while we shut down and get at least 8 hours away from this?
Well, and you mentioned
doable.
You mentioned interoperability.
Yes.
Aries, by its very nature, is very tribal. And we have this thing called the Columbia River that some people address as the Columbia Ocean. Because there's two different programs right across the river from each other.
Yeah.
that very seldom connect on anything. So I'm a firm believer in the principles that Oxcom teaches. It's just that upper management needs to understand it and let go of some of the control that they feel they have to be in a situation where we cooperate and graduate rather than be tribal. Also, you
I agree.
mentioned, oh, go ahead.
No, I agree with you completely. That's where we're headed.
Yeah, another
Question.
issue was back then I was interested in getting credentialed as a ComL, and I found that Washington did not have a program. So I went to Oregon, went through their program, got the position task guide, got it all signed off, and got my ComL through Oregon.
Good
And
deal.
as far as I know, to this day, Washington does not have a ComL certification authority.
We just got it. We just got it. And
That's
I'm,
music.
yeah, that's something I've been pushing for. In fact, I am right now, I have been on to Homeland Security, and I'm working with FEMA, and I'm working with the SWIC. And what I'm demanding is a train the trainer class for ComL. So, and I qualify. I mean, I'm one of the ones now who can sign off on position task books for the state of Washington. But the thing we need more than anything else at this point in time are to have those classes available for people who want to go beyond. We're going to need ComLs. We need ComLs. We're going to need radio room managers. We're going to need people with these skills. We need people that are trained up on exactly how the logistics communications units in all of these various agencies, what exactly they need, how they function, and to be able to come in and take over, because these guys are going to be overwhelmed. Okay, go ahead. I can go on forever.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, I'm not sure if there was some allusion you made to statewide registration or portability of credentials.
Mm-hmm.
Is the Washington EMD finally going to be addressing this issue
Yes.
of portability?
Yes.
And, reliability? Because,
Yes.
As I currently work in 2 different Oxcom units, my credentials are not transportable, which is kind of ludicrous because I haven't changed, but still there has to be 2, 3, 4 different background checks on me. I mean, how many is enough?
That's why my big push to have it be something that happens statewide and to have it recognized at the state level. Now, each individual agency, your local agency having jurisdiction, may say, we want you to have the state credential and this, and it makes sense too, because what we're looking at the state level is that you have Oxcom capabilities, and you would be qualified to. Well, look at it this way. Right now, you're talking about portability. One of the big issues will be if there is an incident that happens in Clark County and you need additional radio operators. You will need additional radio operators because your team is going to be the ones who know how to work the stuff in the field. People can't come in and do what you do because you train for that. But radio operators could come in and work the communications in an EOC, freeing up those guys to be able to go and do something else, to go out and work in the field and do what only you can do. So one of the things we're looking to do is to create a singular radio position once they've met this criteria and they've had equivalent to Oxcom, that they're going into a state database, and all you have to do is send in a 213 request for resources to the state that says, I need 6 radios. And what happens is there's somebody there on a database that looks it down and says, here's 6 guys right here. Are you guys available? They need you in Clark County. That's the goal.
On the subject of credentialing, though, are you going to be using the standard ICS, ComT, ComL, radio position task guides? Or are you
We've got one that's actually a little more involved than that, and we're actually let people have the option as to which way they want to go. If you want to, ultimately, it's all going to be Oxcom. The Washington State is providing additional trainings And they're breaking it up so that it's not like, for example, North Carolina says you take the Oxcom class, here's the Oxcom position task book, you got 5 years to complete it. We're looking at, I'm a teacher by trade. We do that in high school. If you think about it, we graduate seniors. It takes them 4 years to do that, but we have freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. We break it down into manageable chunks. And what we've done at Washington State is we've got the books now where we've taken these things and we're looking where people start. We start with people when they're brand new. What do they need? What's step one? How do we do this? And we take it and we look at it from like beginning, intermediate, advanced. And once you go through, we have 3 position task books. If you go through all 3 of those, you have done all the criteria for Oxcom. And what you can do is you can bring your Oxcom book in, and the person who is signing it off can look and say, yep, all these have been done. It gets signed off and you get credit for Oxcom, and it goes into the database as you have completed Oxcom and you are Washington State certified. And you have the card from Washington State that says you are one of the communicators capable of moving to being called out to serve somewhere in Washington State.
So you're kind of intimating that there's an Oxcom position training guide
Yes,
document type thing.
that's exactly what we've been working on. Yes.
Okay.
Hey, Scott, this is Toby, the president of the club. And
Hey,
so, how you doing? Hey, a couple things. First, I need to kind of conclude your session because we need
Okay.
to end the meeting. But I just want to give you a little word of encouragement. I am a recently retired executive officer of one of the state emergency management agencies for the state of Hawaii. And we did largely what you're talking about. And I can tell you that it works. It takes hard work, and it needs to sort of chip away at the existing system and understandings to bring in a more integrated approach under Oxcom. So my hats off to you. Well done. If there's
Thank you.
anything I can personally do to help you, I would be happy to do that because I've been down this road over many years. But thank you for your presentation this evening, for sharing the insight of EMD. And whether you believe it or not, it's true. You bring some encouragement to a lot of people. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I really appreciate the work you guys do. Let me know if there's anything I can do for you. Okay.
Yeah, I sure will. Hey, would you unshare so we could close off our meeting
I
slides?
thought I
That'd be great.
did.
Oh, maybe you did. Maybe you did.
You're all set.
Okay. Thank you very much,
Okay.
everybody. Thanks again, Scott.
Thank you. I'll check out. Take care.
Aloha.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so I said aloha. That's just a habit of mine going back about 60 years. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed that presentation. Dave, thank you for bringing it to us. And hopefully it got some of your electrons sort of swimming around in your brain there a little bit about some future. I mentioned earlier that Aries is looking at a new future for itself. And we're hoping to bring it into alignment with a vision similar to this. So at this point, I'd like to open the floor to any questions anyone has, any needs anyone has that we should address before we conclude here in the next 5 minutes. Go ahead and unmute.
This is Paul, K7VWH.
Hey, Paul, go ahead.
Living up north here, as I do in Riderwood, we're associated with Cowlitz and Lewis County Aries.
Right.
And so this was good for me to hear as not only as a member of the Clark County Club, but being involved up here because I'm a little bit closer geographically to up here now. And this is something I think our EOC ought to be looking into, and I'm sure maybe he has, but the Clark County Club has it together, and we don't really. We're part of the District 3 Aries up here, but all they do really with that and that is just to have people check in and see if they can be heard, but it isn't really much training. We have a a local net here, the Chehalis Valley net, that has somebody check in with a practice message, and everybody takes turns, you know, giving a message, and everybody has to copy the message, whether it's the standard ARRL or the IC, I think it's ICS 13 form.
213. Yep.
And that's one thing they're doing right up here. And having been a transcriptionist for better than 30 years, I kind of chuckle when people say, could you repeat the third line word 3 on there? And it's like, come on, you didn't get that? But anyway, I did the medical legal transcription for 30 years. So I guess I'm kind of, but I still do it. I still practice it and work with it because it is important, especially with voice communications, to make sure that people get exactly what you're saying and not misunderstand a word or two. Anyway.
Well said, Paul. Thank you very much for your comments. Anyone else?
I have a comment.
Hey, go
Paul
ahead.
Lecoq. 20 years ago, I was the commander, Washington State Guard commander in Spokane. And we tried to develop more ham involvement in Camp Murray operations, EMD operations. But they never really liked us because we didn't talk their language. We couldn't step in and immediately be one of them. And so this training, I think, is going to be really important, not so much to be better hams, but to fit in the slot of an emergency comm person using their terminology, not ours.
Absolutely correct. You know, it was mentioned about NIMS and ICS. Largely, that whole process is about shared terminology. We have that issue. I come out of the public health medical field, and we have that problem just talking with regular people. We use terminology that neither emergency management nor do served patients understand. So finding or bridging those gaps is critical. And right now, nationally, it's about NIMS and ICS. So thank you. Good comments. Thank you. Okay, we got about 1 more minute. Anyone else with something to share?
Yeah, this is Don, N7ETR. Can you hear me?
I hear you loud and clear, Don.
All right. I've been working with a person who purchased a bunch of equipment, and he's going to be getting the list to me, and he's going to have some stuff for sale. And our swap net hasn't been doing a whole lot, but if people are interested in maybe getting some good deals, get in touch with me, because there may be some really cool stuff available. So just a word, I'm in the green book.
Thank you, Don. You may also want to talk with Dave Sherba. He's sort of
Dave,
handles a lot of that.
Dave knows about some of this stuff, and I'll certainly get the list to him.
Great. Thank you, Don. Okay, the bewitching hour. It's 20:30 or 8:30 p.m. Our next meeting is on Friday, May 7th. Same time, same station. What we hope to bring to you at that time is more information that we feel will be important to you. We'll update you on the situation with ARES. Hopefully some of you would be interested in joining ARES concurrently with your club membership. We'll also be talking to you about the progress made on our in-person, getting back to in-person meetings and how we're going to do that and when we're going to do that. We hope that you'll join us. Anytime you feel the urge or the need or the desire, just shoot me an email. I will respond to you as quickly as humanly possible. Remember that those of us with the board and with the officers of the club, we're here to serve you as opposed to the other way around. So if you have a need, please ask. We're here for you. So with that, let's go ahead and adjourn the meeting. I thank you for your participation. Look forward to talking to you all again on Friday, May the 7th. Bye now.